country. Davao police authorities arrest Kayamora Maute, allegedly the father of the terrorist group's leader Omar and Abdullah Maute. Government forces recover over 79 million pesos in cash and checks from the house occupied by Maute terrorists near the Mapandi Bridge in Marami City. President Rodrigo Duterte reiterates his order to government forces to wipe out the terrorists in Mindanao.
TV News. Good evening. I'm Catherine Vital with Richmond Cruz. In the news tonight, Filipinos who intend to work in Qatar will have to wait a little longer to be deployed in that Middle Eastern country. This is due to Qatar's diplomatic crisis with its neighbors, which prompted Philippine authorities to temporarily ban OFW deployment to that part of the world. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and the Kingdom of Bahrain cut diplomatic ties with Qatar over allegations that Doha is supporting extremist groups, including ISIS. Maute filed this report.
The Department of Labor and Employment has suspended the deployment of Filipino workers to Qatar after several Arab states have decided to cut off their diplomatic ties with the said country. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello said the temporary suspension aims to protect the welfare of the Filipino workers in case the situation in Qatar worsens.
You know for a fact that Qatar does not produce its own food. If anything happens that they run out of food and food riots will take place, definitely our OFWs will be the first victims.
Bello said he has directed the labor attaché in Qatar to monitor the situation and the condition of the Filipinos there. Moreover, he has advised recruitment agencies to coordinate with their respective partner agencies in Qatar to ensure the safety of the OFWs. As of 2016, there are about 141,000 documented Filipino workers in Qatar. The Labor Secretary said that so far, there are no plans yet to bring the Filipinos back home, but he assured that the government is ready for possible repatriation.
We still have to study the situation, but in the meantime, we are already sending some augmentation team to not only to Qatar, but even also to the other Middle East countries to meet any possible exigency.
Meanwhile, the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration assured that the government has programs for Filipinos who are affected by the deployment suspension.
Well, meron naman tayong Dole Assist Well program which basically stands for yung Dole services for mga OFWs who need help in terms of yung kanilang reintegration or in terms of pag hindi sila makapunta sa abroad, lalatagan sila ng employment options nila, whether locally or abroad, other types of jobs abroad. Pwede rin silang bigyan ng livelihood, whether it is the Dole or the National Reintegration Center or OWA.
Despite the seemingly diplomatic crisis in Qatar, Bello said that OFWs should not worry as the Philippines still maintains good diplomatic relations with Qatar. For the Nation, Pauline Recuesto.
Malacanang says government agencies concerned are ready to extend assistance to Filipinos in Qatar. Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella said these include the Departments of Foreign Affairs and Labor and Employment.
To cut diplomatic ties with Qatar may have some ripple effects on our overseas Filipino workers. Concerned government agencies are now looking at the matter and would extend assistance and other support to OFWs who may be affected by such action.
Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs says it continues to monitor the situation in the Gulf states in the face of the diplomatic crisis there. Sweden Velado tells us more.
There are 2.4 million overseas Filipino workers in different parts of the world. Of this figure, around 25% work in Saudi Arabia, while 5.5%, or equivalent to more than 200,000 OFWs, are based in Qatar. That is why when Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and United Arab Emirates or UAE and other Gulf states decided to sever ties with Qatar, the first major concern is the welfare of our OFWs. The Department of Foreign Affairs and Philippine Foreign Service posts in the Gulf states closely monitor the situation. House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez states, should the situation deteriorate, the embassy must be able to provide timely advisories to avoid possible panic and ensure our OFW's safety. According to the travel advisory released by the Philippine Embassy in Doha, as a result of the announced severance of ties, the Etihad Airways, Emirates Airlines and other regional carriers have suspended flights to and from Doha. Filipino travelers were advised to consult their travel agents for travel arrangements. Senator Cynthia Villar advised the Department of Labor and Employment and DFA to create a contingency plan to address concerns regarding potential food shortages, limited air, land and sea travel, as well as price surge situation. This was also the message relayed by Senator Sonny Angara. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano said, the big news has no immediate effect to OFWs yet, as our local workers do not usually cross borders in Middle East, but maintained that he will still monitor the situation. Filipina OFW Loida, who has been working for 13 years at a marketing firm in Doha, gave a reaction on the issue.
As a moment, wala namang problema sa trabaho, wala namang problema sa pangkabuhayan, at saka sa mga transaksyon walang naiba. At saka ulitin ko po, wala pong nagiging balitang yung panic daw buying, wala, hindi po yung totoo.
The Philippine Embassy in Doha assured OFWs in Qatar and their families in the Philippines that come what may, they will be provided needed assistance.
The embassy also wishes to assure Filipinos in Qatar at saka po ang kanilang mga minamahal sa buhay na nasa Pilipinas o kung nasa ibang bansa man, na we are maintaining open communication lines with the community here in Qatar, and any developments that will affect their status here or stay here will be, of course, relayed to them in the soonest possible time.
For the Nation, Sweden Velado.
A suspected leader of the Maute terrorist group was arrested at a checkpoint in Davao City today. The suspect was identified as Kayamora Maute. Kayamora Maute was arrested with his daughter, son-in-law, 2 other persons, and a driver of the black Grandia the Mautes were riding in. The suspect is allegedly the father of brothers Omar and Abdullah Maute. Kayamora is among over 100 Maute group members ordered arrested in connection with the martial law declaration in Mindanao. With the arrest of Kayamora Maute, security has tightened further in Davao City.
Authorities are working to trace the source of money recovered by troops from a house occupied by Maute terrorists near the Mapandi Bridge in Marawi City. The money and checks were worth a total of 79.2 million pesos. Alan Francisco reports.
79.2 million pesos of cash and checks were recovered by Philippine Marines from a house occupied by Maute terrorists in Barangay Mapandi in Marawi City after they conducted house-to-house clearing operations. According to Lieutenant Colonel Joar Herrera, spokesperson of the 103rd Infantry Brigade and Task Force Marawi, 52.2 million pesos is cash while 27 million pesos is in checks. Herrera says they are still investigating who owns the house, but Marine Major Rowan Rimas believes the said house was owned by one of the members of Maute.
Our commander, General Joselito Rolando Bautista, the commander of the Task Force Marawi, also commended the troops, the Philippine Marine Corps, for their act of honesty as he pointed the destruction done by the terrorists. According to him, he is very proud of the soldiers in the field.
Yes, it was under the control of the Maute group because prior to the assault of the troops,
authorities explained if the money was owned by the residents of Marawi who fled from the scene of the fighting between government troops and the terrorists, they would brought the money with them. There are reports that Maute group is being funded by drug lords. Aside from the money, the Marines also recovered different firearms from the house. For the Nation, together with Albert Lusario, I am Alan Francisco, Marawi City.
If AFP Chief Eduardo Año says they are validating reports that Omar Maute, one of the founders of the terrorist group, was killed during an airstrike in Marawi City last May 28. According to General Año, there is still possibility that Omar, the brother of Abdullah Maute, is still alive. Earlier, the AFP announced that President Rodrigo Duterte has offered 20 million pesos for any information that could lead to the neutralization of Abu Sayyaf leader Isnilon Hapilon and the two Maute brothers. Meanwhile, Malacanang announced that more Marawi residents trapped in the clashes have been rescued. Relief efforts are also continuing. Here's Julius Isamburon.
Data show more than 1,400 civilians were rescued as the clashes between government troops and the terrorist group Maute continue. Authorities have also confiscated 112 firearms so far. Casualties on the government side are now up to 39.
This is most likely part of the original plan. 2. More trapped civilians from Saduk, Marawi City were rescued by elements of the 1st Civil Military Operations Battalion and personnel of G7 1st Infantry Division. 3. PRRD's offer of 10 million additional bounty for the capture or neutralization of Isnilon Hapilon on top of all existing monetary rewards, both from the Philippines and the U.S. government. PRRD's offer of 5 million additional bounty for the Maute brothers, also in addition to all existing monetary rewards. The monetary reward will be given in cash, no questions asked. Troops continue to make headway into inner areas of the city.
Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella pointed out that the Department of Social Welfare and Development has been continuously giving augmentation assistance to the affected families of Marawi. With the help of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, one of the government's targets now is to return the power supply in affected areas.
As of June 5, a total of 45,216,760 worth of augmentation assistance has been provided by DSWD. This is not yet a consolidated report coming from the NDRRMC, but this is simply referring to the aid provided by the DSWD. Also, as of 8 p.m. last night, the Lanao del Sur Electric Cooperative reported that the 1st District of Lanao is still comprised of 15 municipalities, still 0% energized.
After the clearing operations earlier today, authorities got hold of 52.5 million pesos worth of cash and more than 27 million pesos worth of checks. The cold cash is now in the custody of the Task Force Marawi headquarters. Meanwhile, military operations are being conducted in accordance with the Chief Executive's directive. President Rodrigo Duterte has firmly set the administration's priority in ensuring the safety and welfare of the civilians. On the other hand, Malacanang said the AFP is doing its job to fight the Maute terrorist group with high morale and integrity. For the nation, Julius Tisamboron in Malacanang.
As the Marawi City siege enters its 3rd week, here are the numbers. Nearly 200 dead from both sides, to include innocent civilians caught in the crossfire, hundreds of civilians trapped in the crossfire rescued, and about 200 to 250 estimated rebel fighters and snipers still holed up, but are now on the run given a huge stash of cash and checks and loose firearms found in a few other vacated lairs. PTV's Jervis Manan describes a ghost town city, parts of which are up in smoke from all the artillery pounding to flush out the enemy, whose exit strategies are now limited to 3 in this report.
Thick black smoke billowed from the center of Marawi City this morning. Today marks the 2nd week of fighting, which has intensified. Airstrikes are continuous and locals say today's attacks targeted their wet market. Thousands of civilians are believed to still be there. 51-year-old Mela Gomamak is one of the civilians who were trapped from the firefight. She says she had to leave her livelihood behind. Her family also had nothing to eat until they reached the evacuation centers.
Talaga malapit lang sa amin yung mga ISIS. Natakot kami. Sino naman hindi matakot na binabaril ka, pinaputok ka nga ng bomba. Talaga matatakot ka.
According to the Provincial Management Crisis Committee, they are preparing for 2 scenarios. One is the possibility of Maute group escaping the military, and second, the possibility of their sympathizers conducting diversionary tactics in other towns. To prepare for this, they will be meeting with the Lanao del Sur mayors to make sure that possible attacks in nearby towns will be intercepted.
So there was already an incident for us to make the presumption that probably there will be another attack, and this is not something that we hope to see, of course, but it is something that we want to prepare to ensure that no damage shall be incurred against any of our neighboring towns, similar to what happened here in Marawi City.
According to officials, an estimated 1,400 to 1,700 civilians are still trapped in the city. Those rescued are being brought to a multi-purpose hall in the capital. Some of them have to sleep in the hallways. However, lots of relief from both the government and NGOs are pouring to help them. For the PTV News, Jervis Manahan.
Meanwhile, troops rescued more civilians trapped in their homes due to the clashes between government forces and the Maute terrorists. Alan Francisco was with the soldiers who went to Barangay Loksadatu this afternoon. Here's Alan's report.
3 civilians from Marawi City were rescued by the armed forces of the Philippines and Philippine National Police in Barangay Loksadatu. And because authorities assured us that the rescue operations would be safe, we joined them. Barangay Loksadatu is one of the communities invaded first by the Maute terrorist group. When we entered the community, I first noticed the eerie silence in the area. A lot of houses, stores and other establishments were damaged. According to a soldier who accompanied us, some houses in the said barangay were possibly used as hideouts by the terrorist group. Meanwhile, there are other civilians inside the center of Marawi. Hence, the relatives are appealing to the authorities to rescue them.
Ang karami nila doon sa may Lamber ay 47 tao. So hanggang ngayon hindi pa sila nakaalis doon. Pero walang patay, walang nasugatan. Yun lang ang sinabi nila sa akin sa text. Kung pwede daw ay matulungan sila.
Rescued civilians are immediately being brought to the hospital of Lanao del Sur capital to be examined. For the Nation, together with Albert Lusario, I am Alan Francisco, Marawi City.
Meanwhile, AFP Chief Eduardo Año says additional troops will be deployed in Marawi City to prevent Maute group terrorists from re-entering cleared areas in the locality. General Año said the additional troops will be deployed to prevent the brigands from conducting terroristic actions and other atrocities against civilian residents. He said heavy fighting is now ongoing in areas being held by remnants of the Maute group as the military is now focusing on clearing sniper positions. The AFP chief added that once these sniper positions are cleared, they can say that Marawi City is now fully liberated.
More peace corridors will open soon in other parts of Lanao del Sur. This was the assurance given by Irene Santiago, chairperson of the Government Peace Implementing Panel, given 2 considerations, top of which is the safety and security of the civilians being rescued from Marawi City crisis, and the other is efficiency. On Sunday, a 4-hour humanitarian ceasefire was launched by the GPH and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front peace panels after President Rodrigo Duterte met with MILF Chair Murad Ibarim in Malacanang last week that gave way to the establishment of a 73-kilometer peace corridor in Marawi City. PTV News will take a short break. Don't go away.
Unang iwinagayway bilang simbolo ng ating tagumpay laban sa mga Kastila. Hanggang sa formal na pagpapahayag ng kasarinlang tinatamasa nating mga Pilipino at ng ating bansa. Ito ang bandila ng Pilipinas. Mula noon hanggang ngayon, simbolo ng ating katatagan at pagkakakilanlan. Mahalin natin, igalang at ipagdiwang.
President Rodrigo Roa Duterte is in Russia for an official visit. He declared martial law in Mindanao on May 23. A series of attacks from terrorists and extremists occurred in the island. The areas of Basilan, Sulu and Tawi-Tawi are included in the declaration. To find out the situation in Mindanao, the president has cut short his visit in Russia.
That as of 10 p.m. Manila time, he has already declared martial law for the entire island of Mindanao.
After martial law has been declared, within 48 hours, the president needs to submit a report in Congress, either personal or written. It is stated in our Constitution that martial law and the suspension of writ of habeas corpus is effective only within 60 days. The extension is up to the Congress decision. Martial law can be negated by the majority of votes in Congress. The Supreme Court can also question and decide on the declaration of martial law within 30 days. President Duterte's declaration of martial law in Mindanao aims to protect the residents who are being ruthlessly killed by local terrorists. The proclamation of martial law in Mindanao also aims to eliminate the fear of the Filipinos that the chaos in Mindanao is spreading throughout the country.
Do not be fooled by fake numbers. Know the real numbers.
From July 1, 2016 to May 30, 2017, the government seized a total of 2,288.96 kilos of methamphetamine or shabu with a street value of 11.79 billion pesos. Compared to the previous week's volume, this translates to an increase of 3.02 billion pesos in street value.
For our business news, the slower inflation rate in May 2017 bodes well for the country's economy in the near term. NETA stressed this as its attached agency, the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, reported that headline inflation eased to 3.1% in May 2017 from 3.4% in the previous month. This is slower than market expectations of 3.3% and is within the government's target of 2.0 to 4.0% for 2017. PSA said slower price adjustments in both food and non-food commodities contributed to the slower inflation last month. Malacanang has ordered the implementation of the country's new medium-term development plan. Under Executive Order 27, President Rodrigo Duterte directed all government agencies, including government-owned or controlled corporation and local government units, to align their programs, budgets, and strategies with the Philippine Development Plan, or PDP, and the Public Investment Program, or PIP, for 2017 to 2022. The PDP 2017 to 2022 is the first medium-term development plan to operationalize Ambition Natin 2040, or attaining inclusive economic growth in the country and eventually transforming the Philippines into a globally competitive knowledge economy. PIP 2017 to 2022 contains the priority programs and projects to be implemented by the national government agencies and instrumentalities. The employers group ECOP wants small enterprises to be exempted from House Bill 5067, which aims to increase the service incentive leave to 10 days. In its position paper submitted to the House Committee on Labor and Employee, ECOP said the group does not begrudge the granting of additional paid leaves to employees, but it noted that the exemption to the bill should be extended to small businesses. House Bill 5067 aims to grant a yearly service incentive leave of 10 days from the current 5 days. Employees who rendered at least 1 year of service are entitled for the additional paid leaves. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and Indonesia's Otoritas Hasa Keuangan, or OJK, have signed the letter of intent to formally start negotiations under the ASEAN Banking Integration Framework, or ABIF, in a ceremony recently held in Jakarta. The signatories to the document were BSP Governor Amando Tatanco Jr. and OJK Chairman Mulyaman Haddad. Governor Tatanco noted that the LOI signifies their intention to further explore areas of cooperation between their two countries' banking systems, especially on the entry of qualified ASEAN banks. ABIF enables banking integration by laying down the broad parameters for the establishment of qualified ASEAN banks. Local share prices went down today due to profit-taking. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index declined to 7,953.12 points, or by 0.60%, after surging to 8,001.38 points. All shares contracted by 0.42%, or 19.96 points, to 4,740.31 points. Most of the sectoral indices tracked the main index, led by financials, which declined by 0.84 points. Only the services index finished on the positive note after it rose 0.04%. Volume for the day involved 3.1 billion shares, amounting to 8.2 billion pesos. Losers led gainers at 116 to 82, while 47 shares were unchanged.
guys, you're watching PTV Info Weather. My name is Ice Martinez and here's the latest. The intertropical convergence zone will bring light to moderate showers over portions of Mindanao. Now looking at our latest satellite image, we also see some rain clouds hovering the sections of Zamboanga Peninsula and southern portions of Visayas and northern sections of Visayas as well. Based on the latest forecast map tomorrow, we are also looking at partly cloudy skies with possible thunderstorms over Ilocos region and here in Calabarzon, Central Luzon and Mimaropa provinces, while drier weather condition is up for Cagayan Valley and sections of Cordillera region. Now, Visayas, we are looking at possible thunderstorms over Samar and Leyte provinces, partly cloudy skies meanwhile over the western sections of Visayas all the way here in Palawan area. As for Mindanao, cloudy skies with light to moderate rains and thunderstorms will be experienced over the regions of Caraga, Davao, and Soxargen. Meanwhile, according to the local weather bureau, the average count of tropical cyclones to enter or develop within the Philippine area of responsibility for this month of June is at 1 to 2. Now, Pag-asa also warns that starting this month until the month of August is the peak of rainy season caused by the rainy weather systems, southwest monsoon, and ITCZ. Based on the rainfall forecast, meanwhile, rainfall amount is near average for most parts of the country, while above average of rainfall is forecasted for Region 2, particularly over Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya, Quirino, as well as Aurora, Bicol Region, Bohol, and Surigao provinces. As for the succeeding months, up to September, the average count of tropical cyclones is at 2 to 4 per month. Meanwhile, let's head on now to our metro cities forecast over the next few days. Over at Metro Manila, we are looking at possible thunderstorms tomorrow until Friday with possible highs of 34 to 35 degrees Celsius. As for Metro Cebu and Metro Davao, it will be affected by the ITCZ. Higher chances of thunderstorms in the afternoon or evening with possible highs of 33 degrees Celsius over at Metro Cebu and at 32 to 33 at Metro Davao for the next few days. And that's the latest for now, only here on PTV Info Weather. This has been Ice Martinez. Have a pleasant evening.
Up next, the Supreme Court sets oral arguments on petitions against martial law in Mindanao. The details when PTV News returns.
Before this project of railways from Tutuban to Clark has stayed on a platform of talk, talk, talk. In the administration of President Duterte, it is built, built, built.
Kung may emergency ka, dial 911, the National Emergency Hotline.
President Rodrigo Duterte, the shrewd and sagacious politician that he is, keeps his cards in check or sandbagging them and has not laid them down or sold out completely our claims on the disputed islands and maritime territories in the West Philippine Sea, like his critics and detractors love to declare. PTV's Julius Desamboron reports on how the president carefully balances our legal and rightful claims with our continuing efforts to engage China diplomatically and friendlier bilateral relations, and at the same time set a strict protocol on subsequent actions in the South China Sea for all to follow.
The administration of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte continues to stand for the country's rights on the West Philippine Sea. Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella explained that aside from the strong ties with China, the government still pushes for the Philippines' claim, contrary to his critics' statements that the president has not been taking any actions on this.
The President and his cabinet are working with the governments of all nations with legitimate interests in the South China Sea to ensure that our national interests are protected and the region remains a zone of peace. Confrontation does not serve the interests of our country, and that is why we are committed to a process of engagement and negotiation that will ensure that our rights are respected and protected well into the future. Having said this, our current China policy has achieved 1. Substantive progress in talks with Beijing, 2. Reduce tensions, 3. Economic cooperation. Question is it really better to sue China?
The palace assures that despite the disputes, the territory in question remains conflict-free.
The President has respect for Justice Carpio, and he can assure the justice and the people of the Philippines that the policies of this administration are not only directed at protecting the sovereignty of the Republic, they are also directed at ensuring that our nation and our region remains conflict-free. The President sees those two objectives as complementary and in the best interests of our country.
As chairman of ASEAN 2017, the chief executive vows to pass the Code of Conduct of the Seas, which was one of the major issues tackled during his talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. For the Nation, Julius Tisamboron in Malacanang.
The Supreme Court has set oral arguments on the validity of the martial law proclamation of President Rodrigo Duterte for June 13, 14, and 15. This was in response to the petition filed by the House Minority Bloc led by Albay Representative Edsel Lagman. The other petitioners include representatives for Akbayan, Tomasito Villarin, Gary Alejano of Magdalo, Emmanuel Billones of Capiz, Teddy Bronner Bagila Jr. of Ifugao, and Edgar Erice of Caloocan. The petition claimed that the proclamation of martial law and the suspension of the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus has no sufficient factual basis, as it is feebly based on mostly contrived and/or inaccurate facts, self-serving speculations, enumeration of distant occurrences, and mere conclusions on fact and law on the purported existence of rebellion or invasion. The petitioners added that the leaderships of the House of Representatives and the Senate failed to comply with their constitutional mandate to vote jointly on whether or not to revoke the declaration, which left the minority bloc no other recourse but to ask the High Court to take jurisdiction.
The Sandigan Bayan has issued a whole departure order, or HDO, against former ARMM Governor and MNLF founding chair Nur Miswari in connection with charges over the alleged anomalous procurement of educational materials worth 115.2 million pesos from 2000 to 2001. In 6 separate orders, the Sandigan Bayan 3rd Division directed the Bureau of Immigration to hold the departure of Miswari and 7 of his co-accused to preserve and maintain the effectiveness of the court's jurisdiction over the case and the accused. Aside from Miswari, the HDO was also issued against then DepEd ARMM Director Leo Vigilda Sinches, Chief Accountant Pangalian Maniri, City Aisa Usman, DepEd ARMM Accountant Aladin Usi, Commission on Audit ARMM Resident Auditor Nader Makagaan, and private individuals Cristeta Ramirez and Lolita Sambeli.
A thumbs up rating. This is in the sum of DepEd's evaluation of Monday's return to school madness, kept in check and under tight control thanks to the exhaustive preparations of the department in cooperation with other cabinet agencies, law enforcement agencies, and community and private advocacies. PTV's Julius Sambron reports on the department's needs for more teachers and classrooms and their actions in keeping the transfer of displaced school children from Lanao del Sur and Marawi City to different campuses nationwide smooth and without incident.
The opening of school year 2017-2018 was successful and orderly. This was announced by Education Secretary Leonor Briones during the Malacanang press briefing. Briones also reported that a week before classes started nationwide, teaching and non-teaching personnel already showed readiness under the Brigada Eskwela program, which was conducted in coordination with the Departments of Interior and Local Government, Public Works and Highways, and Health. as well as the LGUs, the MMDA, PNP, barangays, communities, and non-government organizations. On the first day, millions of students flocked to schools. Latest data revealed more than 13 million enrollees. Highest enrollment registered was in Region 4A, having 1.8 million, while the National Capital Region listed 1.5 million.
Meaningful challenge, of course, is the perception of congested schools in Metro Manila. But in Metro Manila and in the entire country, 1.5% ang sa elementary schools ang level lang ng shortage, 1.9% for junior senior school, and 6.56% ang shortage for senior high school. This is because construction is still ongoing, and we hope to resolve this. This is for senior high school in a matter up to 3 months. The usual image of children having classes under the mango tree, of course, is long past. That happened during my time when I was still a student. We don't have children anymore under the mango tree because there are school buildings beside the mango trees, and there are learning spaces. And we have dealt with these shortages, these perceived shortages in as creative a manner as possible.
However, the DepEd conveyed the need for science and mathematics teachers. Meanwhile, the DepEd's monitoring of situations in Muslim community schools showed a total of 1,391 children enrolled in schools outside Marawi City, such as Regions 10 and 12. The Secretary advised parents to enroll their children in the nearest schools as DepEd pushes forward its policy to make schools as peace zones.
We are starting a campaign to put up tarpaulins in all the schools in Mindanao and eventually in the rest of the country, stating that schools are zones of peace and we should protect our learners and our children from conflict because they are not part of all the dramatics going on at present. So we also seek your cooperation in spreading the word.
Efforts are being done to coordinate with the DepEd, ARMM, for the safety and welfare of more than 22,000 affected students and more than 2,000 teachers. For the Nation, Julius de Samboron in Malacanang.
The botched robbery by a desperate gunman at the Resorts World Casino last week tragically led to the deaths of 37 guests and RWM employees and exposed a number of loopholes in the security operations of the hotel, casino / entertainment / mall establishments. Lack of manpower at entry-exit points, especially during graveyard shifts, more exhaustive training, the question whether to arm security guards, and the contemporization / standardization of an antiquated security Bible for all were among the talks points discussed at a gathering for hotel, resort, mall, casino security managers and the police in this report from Eunice Maute.
More than 100 security managers of hotels, resorts, and malls from Metro Manila convened today in Camp Crame to discuss the security measures of their management and the new policies to improve after the tragedy in Resorts World Manila that resulted to the death of more than 30 innocent individuals. The coordinating conference today, headed by PNP Supervisory Office for Security and Investigative Agencies or SOSIA, is in accordance to the directive of PNP Chief Police Director General Ronald Bato de la Rosa to avoid incidents as such. According to PNP SOSIA Director Chief Police Superintendent Jose Mario Espino, during the conference it showed that it's the drills and the rehearsals of the security plan lacking among the security guards of the agencies.
It seems na wala yung command and control at the time. With this incident, they need to update their respective security plan and include this kind of situation.
And to correct the mistakes, additional comprehensive and hands-on trainings of security guards is now being considered. The PNP also reiterated that although the investigation is ongoing, there are now evident failures on the end of the hotel management and security agency. Some of these include the actual application of trainings, the only one security guard in the entrance of casino, and the wearing of improper uniform during working hours. Meanwhile, the PNP SOSIA will now implement the refreshment of security guard courses on a monthly basis.
They have their own security plan. No? As a proactive measure, they should regularly conduct drills and rehearsal so that every security personnel, even employees, understand what are the rules.
According to Espino, they will also require hotel management to submit their security plans in case of disaster. On the other hand, PNP Social tomorrow in the public hearing will request to require hotels to follow the security code of the Philippines. For the Nation, Eunice Maute.
Meanwhile, inspections were conducted at the Resorts World Manila this morning on possible security and fire safety violations. Authorities found no negligence in regard to compliance with fire safety standards. But Jed Del Rosario reports that a third ocular inspection is likely to be conducted.
The authorities conducted a second ocular inspection at Resorts World Manila in Pasay City. PNP Police Chief Superintendent Tomas Apolinario led the inspection with the Bureau of Fire Protection, SOCO, and PNP investigators. The authorities identified the owner of the short firearm used by the suspect, Jesse Carlos, but they declined to reveal it to the media pending follow-up operation. Meantime, Chief Superintendent Apolinario said they don't see any negligence or violation of the said casino with regards to the fire safety standard.
Nakita naman namin yung the door, yung pag-open ng door is from the inside. At pagkita mo naman dun sa fire exit, so makita mo naman pag may sunog, di ba, color black because of the smoke. Pagpasok mo dun sa fire exit, color white yung paint. So meaning, hindi naman mausok dun sa loob. So it's just so happen siguro na hindi nila nakita sa usok or nagpanic.
There is, however, a possibility of conducting a third inspection in the said casino. For the Nation, Jed Del Rosario.
In anticipation of the annual Islamic pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca from August 30 to September 4, 2017, the Department of Foreign Affairs warned the public against any organizations or individuals claiming to facilitate passport processing in time for the Hajj. The DFA explained that only holders of the Philippine passports will be accepted for Hajj processing by Saudi authorities. Hajj participants are generally advised to apply for a regular passport at least 1 year before the pilgrimage to ensure that the travel documents is ready and on hand at the time of travel.
14 billion pesos in the form of mostly grants is no small change the nation can afford to pass up, especially if almost all the amount is earmarked for electrification and development in Mindanao. PTV's Ria Fernandez reports on the ongoing dialogue between benefactor and beneficiary to clear things over the country's firm policy to reject any financial assistance from anyone if it presupposes any form of active meddling in the country's internal affairs.
The European Union reaffirms continued aid to the Philippines despite last month's rejection of the government of some of its financial assistance with conditions. EU Ambassador to the Philippines, France Jessen, said this in an interview after gracing the turnover of EU's Reach Asia policy support component of reading materials about environment conservation to DOE and DENR to be distributed to schools.
We have an ongoing dialogue with the government.
Aside from climate change, EU is also focused on providing programs and projects for Mindanao's peace and development. It includes creating jobs and providing access to electricity to residents. Meanwhile, with regards to Marawi City, the group is still waiting for the situation in the area to stabilize before it provides humanitarian aid.
It's a little bit early for us to go in with different support measures because we first need to have the security situation stabilized.
For the Nation, Ria Fernandez.
LRT Line 1 will soon extend its operating hours and increase weekday trips as part of efforts to improve the delivery of mass transport passengers to the nation. Department of Transportation, or DOTR, Undersecretary for Rail Cesar Chavez said commuters will soon experience shorter waiting time as a result of these improvements. LRT1 concessionaire Light Rail Manila Corporation will start its morning operations from Baclaran to Roosevelt Station at 4:30 in the morning, which at present starts at 5 in the morning. For the evening operations, the last trip northbound from Baclaran to Roosevelt will extend until 10 in the evening, while the last trip southbound will leave the Roosevelt station at 10:15. The new weekday schedule will lead to the increase of the trips of LRT Line 1 from the present 512 to 554 daily trips. However, the existing schedule for weekends and holidays will still be in effect.
With the nation's kids getting back to campus and hitting the classrooms, come the rains brought by the southwest monsoons. All that precipitation and moisture bring forth the ubiquitous ponds, creeks, puddles all over the megacity. And with all the stale and standing water around come to life, the little mosquito whose dirge of death and lethal stings visits illnesses in so many forms to us all. PTV's Lala Babilonia reports on the precaution the World Health Organization timely enjoys in celebration of this global occasion of prevention.
The World Health Organization identified dengue as the most common mosquito-borne disease. To help spread dengue consciousness, especially this rainy season, the Pest Exterminators Association of the Philippines, or PEP Incorporated, launched the first ever Global Pest Awareness Day in the country.
When you control the pest, definitely, may iwasan natin yung pagdami ng dengue. No? Sabi nga, ang prevention and control should be a shared responsibility.
According to the World Health Organization, about 50 to 100 million dengue infections occur every year. The same kind of mosquito also carries the Zika and the West Nile virus. It can also cause malaria, chikungunya, yellow fever, and encephalitis. The Department of Health reminded the public to always put the 4 Ps in their minds to avoid dengue. These are to search and destroy mosquito breeding places, use self-protection measures such as mosquito repellent lotions, seek early consultation if fever lasts for more than 2 days, and say no to indiscriminate fogging. For The Nation, Lala Babilonia.
Turning now to our ASEAN page, a hospital in Vietnam has started using new technology in the treatment of cancers. The detail of this report from Beth Kachin.
Breast cancer is one of the most common kind of cancer worldwide. In Vietnam alone, annually, almost 11,000 cases were recorded, and there were almost 5,000 deaths attributed to it. Because of this, Vietnam continually do research on how to cure or ease the pain of patients having this kind of sickness. This hospital in Vietnam helps in this endeavor. They were doing medical transfusion before, but patients usually feel dizzy and weak. That is why they have introduced a new kind of treatment by injecting a new fluid. The new fluid targets cancer cells and leaves the healthy ones. Another innovation is the high-capacity radiation therapy machine. The said machine helps in reducing the side effects of radiation, and it improves the recovery period from 24 days to 16 days. Other countries like France also help Vietnam with this new technology. By means of this new technology, the pain being felt by the patients undergoing treatment is being eased. And above all, it gives them hope. For The Nation, Elizabeth Kachin.
For our foreign page, the terrorist attacks on and near London Bridge sent shockwaves across the globe this weekend. At a security forum in Singapore, which was wrapping up Sunday, just as the attacks were unfolding, Asian-Pacific defense officials talked about the need for more cooperation in the fight against religious extremism. VOA's Bill Ide has more from Singapore.
At this year's annual Shangri-La Dialogue Security Forum, China's militarization of artificial islands in the South China Sea and the growing threat North Korea poses to the region were key topics of focus. But with fighting ongoing in the Philippines between the military and Islamic State-linked militants, recent attacks in Indonesia, and Saturday night's mayhem in London, officials pledged to do more work together to fight militant extremism. Indonesian Defense Minister Raya Mizard Rayasudu called militants killing machines and says of the 1,200 Islamic State fighters in the Philippines, about 40 were from Indonesia.
Indonesia is ready to support the work of intelligence, including sharing information to resolve the issues related to terrorism with its Southeast Asian partners and other countries like the United States.
He called for the expansion of anti-piracy patrols, which increasingly are focused on fighting terrorists in the southern Philippines. Later this month, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Indonesia will add joint air patrols in the Sulu Sea along their shared boundaries. In a speech on Saturday, Secretary of Defense James Mattis stressed the U.S. commitment to fighting IS, not only in Iraq and Syria, but Southeast Asia as well.
This heartbreaking attack we are observing right now on a city in Mindanao reminds us that terrorists intentionally make battlefields where the innocent live. We must all devote ourselves to ensuring a stable environment in which violent extremist organizations wither and die, not our innocent citizens.
Last month, a suicide blast at a bus terminal in Jakarta killed 3 police officers. IS claimed responsibility. Indonesia's defense minister says with the world's largest Muslim population, his country is a prime target for being influenced by the radicalism of IS.
The United States has called on the Gulf countries and Egypt to address their differences with Qatar. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Yemen, Maldives, and Egypt cut ties with Qatar over its alleged links with terrorist organizations and questioning of U.S. hostility toward Iran. All of these countries are U.S. allies in the fight against Islamic State and Iran's expansionism. U.S. officials say the rift will not undermine these efforts. Zlatica Hope reports.
U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson on Monday urged parties in the conflict to sit down for talks and resolve their issues. But he said all of them remain committed to the joint anti-terrorism effort.
I do not expect that this will have any significant impact, if any impact at all, on the unified fight against terrorism in the region or globally. All of those parties you mentioned have been quite unified in the fight against terrorism and the fight against Daesh, ISIS, and have expressed that most recently in the summit in Riyadh.
U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis said it is clear that Iran is working to destabilize the region.
From Syria, where Assad remains in power today because of Iran's actions, to Yemen, where they have been contributing in an unhelpful way to a war that is marooning millions of people and leaving them vulnerable to starvation and health problems and violence. So I think it's Iran's actions that will speak most loudly.
The conflict between Qatar and its Gulf neighbors is not a new one.
The Emiratis and the Saudis have been very clear and very open in saying that they disapprove of Qatar's relationships with the Muslim Brotherhood, their willingness to host Qaradawi, the Egyptian jihadist preacher. And these have been long-standing issues.
Middle East expert Gerald Firestein says despite tensions, Qatar and its neighbors always have agreed on the importance of pushing back Iran's expansionism. But he says unity among the Gulf neighbors is important in promoting regional security and stability, and the United States has always helped its Gulf allies iron out their differences.
I would hope that once again that the Kuwaitis and the Omanis might play a positive role in trying to resolve this issue. I see that Sheikh Tamim went to Kuwait last week. My guess is that he was looking for Kuwaiti assistance in reaching out and resolving the disagreements, and the United States should support that once again.
Arab states have suspended diplomatic relations with Qatar in the past. But on Monday, some of them also cut off land, air, and sea travel to and from Qatar.
On to athletics. Patay President Philip Elia Huico assured that the Philippine athletics team is fully capable of raking in gold at the Southeast Asian Games in Kuala Lumpur this coming August. This despite the absence of Olympian marathoner Mary Joy Tabal. Aren Malyare has the full story.
The possibility seems to be getting narrower for the inclusion of Pinay Olympian marathoner Mary Joy Tabal in the Philippine athletics team in time for the upcoming Malaysian SEA Games. In a press conference, Philip Elia Huico, president of the Philippine Athletics Track and Field Association or PATAFA, openly admitted that they have totally let go of the 27-year-old Cebuana marathoner due to her alleged failure to communicate with PATAFA and training on her own under the mentoring of personal coaches. In an interview with PTV Sports, the PATAFA chief admitted that they are just waiting for a response from Tabal's camp.
Nasa kanya yun. Nasa kanyang siyang bahala kung ano gusto niyang gawin. The burden is not on me. It's on her to come forward or to do whatever. Basta kami rito, we are protecting our community and we are very professional about this and we are very much focused on the SEA Games. We do not want any distractions.
Huico added that without the help of Patafa, Tabal will find it difficult to join other international tournaments under the name of the Philippines, particularly this year's SEA Games, where she last brought home a silver medal in 2015. Despite this, Huico is optimistic that even without Tabal, the Philippine athletics will be able to perform well. The national team gathered 5 golds last year in Singapore.
We will perform well. We have a fighting crew. Their morale is high.
Before the 29th SEA Games this coming August, the national trucksters have a busy schedule ahead. They are set to join the Thailand Open this week, Hong Kong, Korea, and the Asian Championships next month. For The Nation, Aryan Malyari.
Even after a splendid performance, the Golden State Warrior superstar Stephen Curry still seemed not contented with his performance. This despite a 2-0 series advantage being enjoyed by the Warriors over the Cavs in the ongoing NBA Finals. This report courtesy of Dennis Principe.
Despite a triple-double performance in Game 2, Golden State Warriors superstar Stephen Curry seemed discontented with the way he's been playing in the ongoing NBA Finals. Curry said he still needs to fine-tune his plays, specifically in the turnover area. During the Warriors' 132-113 victory over the Cavaliers, Curry tallied 32 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists in leading Golden State to a 2-0 series edge over Cleveland.
There's an 8 on the stat sheet that I need to correct when we go to Cleveland, because the points that I gave up off turnovers in their building will electrify the crowd and their team, and this, things that we have to eliminate. So.
Meantime, Warriors coach Steve Kerr continues to be cautious about the ability of Cleveland to make a series comeback, just like what LeBron James and company did in coming back from 1-3 deficit during last season's finals.
None of that matters unless we can finish, the job with this series. And we know, trust me, we know. It was 2-0 last year, we lost. So playing an unbelievably good competitive team, dominant team. They have, 2-3 losses the whole playoffs. Now we got to go back there. This is where the series changed last year. So, we're just trying to think about the next game.
Game 3 will happen Thursday, Manila time at the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. For The Nation, Dennis Principe.
There is a different kind of sport that has gained popularity in the countries of Austria, Germany, and Switzerland, which they call the beer mile. The beer mile is a type of race where each team is made up of 1 to 2 players. The goal of the game is for the players to finish drinking their beer until they get to cross the finish line. The first team to go past the finish line and finish their beer will be considered as winners. The racers usually have to tackle a route reaching 5 to 12 kilometers.
The Department of Labor and Employment suspends the deployment of overseas Filipino workers in Qatar in view of the diplomatic crisis in that Middle Eastern country. Davao police authorities arrest Kayamora Maute, allegedly the father of the terrorist group's leader Omar and Abdullah Maute. Government forces recover over 79 million pesos in cash and checks from a house occupied by Maute terrorists near the Mapandi Bridge in Marawi City. President Rodrigo Duterte reiterates his order to government forces to wipe out the terrorists in Mindanao.
Those were today's headline stories on PTV News. I'm Catherine Gadal with Richmond Cruz. Thank you and good night.
Do not be fooled by fake numbers. Know the real numbers.